Okay. We're going to get started. It looks like some people are having some audio challenges. Um, See, Beverly, I can see you, but I don't have your audio connected.
I think can you hear me, SB?
Yep, I can hear you.
I think there's been I don't know if they updated the Zoom app or what, but there's an icon that you need to click to get audio now that I didn't notice before. At least if you're using a phone. So I just texted my mom.
Okay. So you said there's an icon that says what?
It says is the first icon on the lower left of the screen, and it says like audio.
Right.
So that's how I heard you. Is I just clicked that.
Yeah. Because you have to turn on the audio. That is correct.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's new or what.
They probably did it just to make it a little bit easier.
Okay.
So I just paused the live stream, but I'm going to start it. Well, the live stream is still going, but I just paused it on my website. But I also sent that link, so if people want to continue to at least enjoy the presentation and they can hear everything, then it should be fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll look into that and figure out what's happening with the link.
Yep. No problem. That was a curveball.
I know,
Didn't
right?
see that one coming. Yeah. No worries.
As
Like I
usual,
guess they updated it like in the duration of that time
right?
that we
Change the
didn't have it. Yeah. So
status. Okay, I see someone just called in. Okay, looks like Brenda got hers working. She muted herself. Okay, well, it's 7:09, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is being recorded on the YouTube channel for the New Life. So
okay,
even
cool.
when we
So we can get
finish,
it that way.
yeah, I can also send it out afterwards to make sure
Awesome.
everybody has a copy of it.
Sweet.
So it just means we won't be able to interact as well each time. But what I may do is see if we can set it up where I can just do the YouTube live stream. People can just subscribe to the New Life page, and then we just set it up that way so they get notifications when it goes live, and they just log on and watch it. Go to the YouTube page, click the link. So okay, well, I am going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, I want to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence because at this point in time in the challenge, a lot of it really becomes mental. It becomes an emotional decision to keep motivated, to stay on top of things, and that's really critical and foundational. So I wanted to kind of deal with that a little bit today. So the first thing is we have to define what emotional intelligence is. So when we think about emotional intelligence, the first thing that is important is to define it. And emotional intelligence is essentially the capacity to be aware of, to control and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So, in this capacity to be aware of, to control, and to express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically, that's the foundation of what we're dealing with emotional intelligence. And so, a lot of times when people are dealing with food issues, weight issues, a lot of this is connected to emotional factors in the life. And if we're not aware that we're engaging in emotional eating, we're not aware that It's emotions that are driving us to not want to go to the gym, to not want to follow up on the program, to allow our emotions to drive our decisions, and what emotions are and what's triggering them, then we can get really caught off guard in that particular space. Now, when we look at emotional intelligence, it's really based upon three essential areas. The area of happiness, resilience is what I talked about when I was up there and spoke at the church in July on the 7th or the 6th, and also empathy. And we'll deal with empathy at a later session. Now, these three are really kind of the foundation because happiness is something that's foundational to every person. And so that's what we're really going to focus on tonight, is to talk a little bit about happiness. Now, most of us are pursuing this new life challenge and wanting to go on this health journey because it is going to contribute to our happiness. So when we think about the Declaration of Independence, even of the United States, it says that we are all, right, created equal, by our creator with certain unalienable rights, that you have a right to this. You have a right to life, you have a right to liberty, and you have a right to the pursuit of happiness. And it is basically in our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, that there's nothing the nation should do that should hinder your pursuit of happiness. Now, when you think about that, that being fundamental to what our country is all about, yet you find so many people who are unhappy. But we have to be clear that happiness is not the absence of negative feelings. It's not that being happy just means I don't feel bad. Just as we say, if we eat a piece of food or we try a drink, just because it's not terrible doesn't mean it tastes good. It's just not terrible. And in the same sense, we just don't have any negative feelings. We may not feel depressed. We may not feel anxious. We may not have resentment. We may not have any frustrations going on, but nevertheless, that doesn't translate into happiness. Just as well as health is not just the absence of disease. Wellness and health is not just, well, I don't have diabetes or I don't have heart disease, and so I'm healthy. No, that's not necessarily true. And this translates on the emotional level as well. Now, Jim and Jennifer Moss, they were actually co-founders of a business concept called the Plasticity Labs. Now, this really started off with the fact that Jim was, working middle America, corporate America, I believe, and had a well-paying job. They were doing really well. And right around the time that Jennifer became pregnant, Jim became diagnosed with a condition that was going to put him out of capacity and commission for over a year, where Jennifer would be forced to essentially be the breadwinner, as well as take care of this child that's coming, as well as take care of her husband, who was completely paralyzed and incapacitated and had to relearn so many basic functions of life. And through this, she decided to start keeping a diary, to keeping a journal. Now, as she was going through this, right, the consistent theme in the literature that she discovered, because she was concerned with her happiness, that she wasn't happy being married. She wasn't happy with her situation. And she said, how can I increase my happiness? And this consistent theme was gratitude. And this led her to start a gratitude journal. So in this particular journal, she would essentially talk about 5 things that she was thankful for. And this is something I always encourage people to do. When you wake up in the morning, take some time to have a journal, a gratitude journal. And this is important as you're going through the New Life Challenge, because there's so many different things that you may be thankful for. My knees don't hurt anymore. I'm feeling better. My skin is clearing up. I went to the doctor and found out that my blood sugars are down. These are all things that really should be filling our lives with gratitude. And so each and every day, I always encourage people, start the day with at least 3 things that you're thankful for, and then move on to one great thing that happened in the past 24 hours. Those 2 things really train your mind to focus and to search for the things that you're grateful for in life. As human beings, we're naturally very critical. We often look for the negative. And so this is something we have to train our minds to do. And this is something that's going to immediately bolster and really improve our consistency and our discipline and our dedication to completing the New Life Challenge. Now, there's 5 essential elements to lasting contentment. So we're not talking about momentary happiness. People say, well, happiness and joy lasts forever, but happiness is based on circumstances. But a lot of the literature and the science and research is suggesting something very, very different from that. There are critical elements to that. And in a book written by Martin Seligman, he wrote a book called Flourish. And in this particular book, he was essentially bringing out these 5 essential elements to lasting happiness and contentment. So he broke them down this way, and we kind of put this in an acronym called REMAP. Now, that means relationships, engagement, meaning, achievement and accomplishment, and positive emotions. So I'm just going to touch base on these a little bit. First of all, when you deal with relationships, people have meaningful, positive relationships with others are happier. It's just a fact. I talked about when I came to do the launch there in Detroit, the very fact that people who had social integration, face-to-face interactions with people often live longer, much longer, and is a greater predictor of your longevity than nutrition or even exercise. And that's really, 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 really critical to think about. Meaningful, positive relationships in our lives actually directly affect our mental health, our mental well-being. So if there's a toxic relationship in your life, you really have to take a step back and consider the fact, do I really have to have this relationship in my life? It can lead to diseases, lifestyle disease, because a part of our lifestyle is in fact related to our wellness mentally and our happiness. And relationships is fundamental to that. The second one is engagement. Losing ourselves in a task or project provides us with a sense of disappeared time because we're just so highly engaged. This is what happens to kids when they're playing video games, or people who are into sports, or maybe there's a person who really loves to read and study the Bible, or whatever the case may be, right? Everybody has activities where they are finding themselves being lost. The time has disappeared. They can't believe it's been an hour. They can't believe it's been 2 hours. This is what we call the concept of flow that was started by a particular scientist who has a very difficult last name for me to pronounce, but nevertheless, his research is just really groundbreaking on this very point. We should all have something, a task or a project or a hobby or something that we love to do that's really going to provide us with this sense of disappeared time, where we just get lost in this. We're just so engulfed in it. Some people get into doing puzzles. Some people, they like to play certain word games, Sudoku, different things like this. These kind of things actually build engagement, and they actually increase our level of happiness. Now, meaning this comes from serving a cause bigger than the immediate moment or ourselves. Now, this could be religious, it could be service oriented, it could be generational, but we all need it, right? I always encourage families to consider having a family vision. Sometimes what brings meaning doesn't have to be this grand, missionary project to bring the gospel to an unentered country, or to, start all these Muslim institutes around so people can be better educated on Islam and what it's about, or to deal with the project of underserved kids in India or parts of China or leper colonies. These are all very meaningful things, and they do bring meaning to life. But generational is another one. What are our children and our grandchildren going to receive from us? What are we going to be passing down to them? And realizing that sometimes if you sit down, in your family and say, what's our family vision? What is our vision as a family? Where are we building towards? What are we trying to build into? And that really provides us with context in every single thing that we're doing in order to really drive meaning in all the simple day-to-day activities of life. This is why we clean. This is why we do our chores. This is why we're doing our homework, because this is the family vision of what we're trying to accomplish. That leads me directly into this one, which is a sense of achievement and accomplishment. Now, to feel significant life satisfaction, we must strive to better ourselves. And that's really what the New Life Challenge is all about. In essence, just knowing that you're bettering your life, you're bettering your health, you're impacting your mental well-being is going to give you a greater sense of life satisfaction. You've accomplished something. And that's why we love through the workbook and checking off the things and saying, hey, these are the things that we've accomplished. These are the things that we have done. Every day you get to say, I completed this habit. I completed that habit. I was able to fulfill, even if it's 5 out of the 10 each day, there's a sense of accomplishment. There's a sense of achievement. You're actually bettering yourself. Every decision matters. And that's something that I always try to reiterate no matter what. The last one is positive emotions. We're dealing with things like peace, gratitude, satisfaction, pleasure, inspiration, hope, curiosity, love. They all fall into this category. we should really focus on really cultivating experiences that give us these type of emotions. Going down and saying, you know what, I'm not necessarily into classical music, but there's a curiosity there. You may not necessarily be an outdoorsy person and like camping and stuff like that, but just the curiosity, just the feeling of satisfaction, like, okay, I actually did it. I actually accomplished something. That's really going to drive and increase our happiness, giving us these new experiences, doing things that you like, getting those things done that you've always wanted to get done, scheduling time and saying, you know what, I'm not going to go commit myself to anything else. I'm just going to make time for this one project that I've been trying to get done for a very long time. Now, when you think about happiness at church, right, does it really matter? And with a religious organization, it's very interesting that the Telios Leadership Institute, they talk about this in organizations. Does happiness in organizations matter? And of course it does, right? People are not happy at a church. They decide to switch churches. They decide to go somewhere else. And one of the things that's very critical is, number one, you have to have a meaningful vision of the future. When we think about the idea of going into a church and joining a local congregation, it's all about, do we believe in the vision that this church is trying to create for the community? Am I willing to buy in that? Am I willing to invest in that? Number two, we have to provide a sense of purpose that every role, every department, every ministry of the organization is actually serving to accomplish this vision, and also the facilitation of great relationships. It is something that is really amazing how we can come in the context of spiritual worship and really not have significantly meaningful relationships with people. We're just kind of going through and saying, well, I'm here for my own personal spiritual edification, which is great. But at the end of the day, what keeps communities together, such as a church or a business, is that we got to have great relationships. And these three things is what research has really shown impacts the happiness of church members, impacts the happiness of the congregation as a whole. And this really can be applied to businesses and other organizations as well. Now, James Watson and Francis Crick, they had a 1968 memoir where they were talking about discovering the double helix, right? And this deals with the concept of small wins, right? So James Watson said, my morale skyrocketed, for I suspected that we now had the answer to the riddle. So they weren't able to completely solve it, but just the little small advances that, okay, we figured out this part of it, that was enough to give them morale. And so when you think about happiness in a spiritual context, you also want to think about celebrating the small wins, making sure that, hey, you know what? We don't have to wait for something grand in order to really build celebration and encouragement and inspiration, right? If someone is, you know what, this week I had a day where I completed all 10 habits, or maybe they're saying, this is the first time that I was able to complete the nutrition challenge. That's all going to drive us into a space where we are going to be really excited about celebrating just that small thing, and that's going to significantly increase our happiness. Also, right, when we deal about keeping, diaries that were kept by knowledge workers, so people who are really consultants and things like that, they're not hard laborers. This is what we kind of learned in some of that research. We discovered the progress principle as the most important boost in motivation, emotions, and perceptions during a workday, i.e. making progress in meaningful work. So this is what we talk about in the New Life Challenge, why each week it gets progressively more challenging. But we look at this as we say, okay, here's the progress principle. This is actually the most important way to boost our motivation, our emotions, and our perceptions of how our day is going, especially at work or at church. Hey guys, this is where we are progressively. This is where we are in the process. And as people see progress being taking place and they're celebrating every single advancement in progress, this actually creates more meaningful happiness and satisfaction. And that's something to apply even to this spiritual journey that we're on right now through the New Life Challenge. Make sure that you're following the progress principle, right? Making it meaningful, because every single step is working us to that goal of where we're trying to go. Last but not least, right, we want to also focus efforts on what serves to catalyze and nourish progress, right? So in the 1968 issue of the Harvard Business Review, Frederick Hertzberg, he published this, article called One More Time, How Do You Motivate Employees? And his key takeaway was give them an opportunity to experience achievement, right? And so if you focus your efforts on what serves to catalyze and nourish progress, is this opportunity to say, you have achieved something, recognizing these things. And this goes back obviously to the 1960s, where this concept was coming up. And when you're dealing with motivating people and keeping them engaged, it's got to be a sense of achievement and experience of being empowered and feeling accomplished all along the way, not just at the end. So key as you move forward. So as we kind of focus our efforts on that, he noticed in his research, of the 669 managers across various industries and countries surveyed, only 5% ranked support for making progress in the work as the number one motivator. Most saw it as dead last. They're like, oh yeah, the number one way to motivate people is this, supporting them for making progress in the work. That's the very thing that most leaders were not doing. Most managers were not doing. And this is very, very critical as you think about building a culture where people are satisfied, they're excited, is giving them a sense that they're actually making progress. Now, when we deal with inner life triggers, this is another one that I wasn't sure if I was going to put this in here, but I wanted to add this in because I think it can be helpful. Number one, right, when we're dealing with these inner life triggers, we want to deal with, first of all, we talked about progress, which is steps forward versus setbacks. So we want to focus on those steps forward that we're taking, right? If we're dealing with a project, we want to look at what are the catalysts, what are the things that are motivating us, that keep us moving, and what are the things that are inhibiting, right, that are killing motivation. Get rid of those things, right? And when you're dealing with, different people in life, focus on the nourishers, right, versus the toxins, right? People are just going to be toxic and create an environment that discourages and that breaks people's spirit. We want to focus on the nourishers. We want to look at the catalysts, things that motivate us, and appreciate every step forward in which we're taking. Now, this is the last thing I want to present, is this whole idea of, dealing with a sense of vitality. And the first thing is that we always want to have an experience with people throughout the program where there's a sense of discretion in terms of decision making, right? As people are thinking about things and trying to make choices, we want to kind of contain that that sort of process. As a person that says, well, I'm thinking about dropping out of the program, or I'm thinking about, trying to invite another person to join me to keep me motivated. As people go through that decision-making process, like maintaining discretion in that really, really encourages happiness and motivation and keeps people going. Also, being able to share information, pass it along as it comes. Minimizing incivility is just about making sure people are talking to each other with mutual respect whenever there's a gathering, whenever there's a time to get together, and also give people feedback. And that's something that's very important. And we can put this in the context of a business, but we also look at this in the context of how the New Life Challenge progresses, right? We want to give people feedback, we want to see how people are doing and letting them know, hey, this is what you're accomplishing, and this is really what's going on. Now, I kind of want to pause here for a moment because obviously I've been doing a lot of talking, but I want to give people an opportunity to kind of engage a little bit. So even if you cannot verbally speak and I can't hear you, you can feel free to also click on the chat box and also, bring up any questions that you may have and how you're doing in the program and any challenges that you're having, and if you need some advice. So does anybody have any questions or major things that are kind of pressing on them in terms of how the challenges are going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I guess I'll go.
Okay.
For me, I guess just an update, not really any question, but I guess it's been going pretty well so far. Of course, I've slipped a bit, some areas, and in some areas, like I might be not getting the points that I should for the day. But I think that because I'm so busy, I don't I don't make it to the book to check off what tasks I've completed each day. But
Mhm.
I've kind of just been trying to do things intuitively, like
Uh-huh.
just remembering to get water during the day, to get sunlight, and just to organize my day around accomplishing all those tasks.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
right.
been it's been pretty well in that regard. Just trying to make sure that even if I'm not sitting down and reading the information in the educate yourself portion, that I'm keeping in mind those 10 factors of health throughout the day. So in my mind, I'm like going through everything and I'm checking them off and I'm saying, okay, I did X, Y, and Z. Um, I guess the maybe you can provide a little insight on this. The part I'm a little blurry about is as far as the exercise goes.
Hmm.
The book recommends that you get walking cardio in each day, and
Hmm.
I've been trying to do that, but also add in conjunction with that like strength training.
Yep.
So I just wanted to run my regimen by you and see what you think of it,
Okay.
because I don't know if it's like is what you were
Yeah, go
encouraged.
ahead. Go ahead.
But basically it's a push pull legs regimen, right? So one day I'm doing like push-ups, like all pushing muscles. The next day I'm doing all pulling muscles, and then the next day I'm doing all leg muscles. And I know you gave a presentation on like what kind of exercise you can incorporate, but I'm
Yep.
just thinking if that's something you'll recommend continuing.
Yeah.
Um,
So what I think is number one, when you're dealing with your fitness, you really gotta lock in on what your goal is, right? Are you trying to build performance, strength output? Are you trying to build endurance? Are you trying to build muscle mass, power? Those are going to be the fundamental things. Is to establish your goal that way. So, in terms of looking at your goal and saying, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? As success in any line demands a definite aim. Whenever I train clients one on one, they usually have a goal in mind. I'm trying to lose 30 pounds. I really want to, a woman will say she wants to work up to being able to do a push up. Or a guy says, he hasn't been able to squat because of pain in his knee or his lower back or whatever. So, in those things, we set goals and then we work towards those goals. So, I guess my question for you would be: is your interest in just building general levels of fitness, or are you thinking about building a certain amount of strength or performance output?
it's really strength training that I'm aiming for.
Okay.
Um, yeah, just to get stronger.
So are you thinking like toning? So when you think strength, are you thinking endurance or are you thinking output? So for example, are you trying to bench press, um, your body weight, or are you trying to be able to bench press for a minute at a very high weight level resistance?
Like body weight.
Okay. So in working towards that, there's two things that you have to do. If you're trying to build a certain level of power, push and pull is a generally good basic rule. But if you're trying to get to certain levels, like for example, you should be able to bench press your body weight. Um, you should be able to squat your body weight. You should be able to do a certain at least 10 pull-ups as a man. Um, and it's 3 pull-ups, unassisted, of course. Push-ups, that's pretty straightforward. Um, and I could go into other things like deadlifting and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you're looking at strength, that's what you want to gain. The two recommendations I would give to you are I would really set a day to focus on Olympic type lifts. So like behind the neck back squats, deadlifts, and bench pressing. So you'd have days for the Olympic lifts and then military press and a day for your pull-ups. And then we would also add something what we call farmer's carry, where essentially you take a good amount of weight, either in two hands, and we would start off with you being able to carry up to twice your body weight. And so you'd have, let's say, I'm 200 pounds, so let's say I have 100 in one hand and 100 in another hand. and I need to be able to walk at least 100 meters with that weight. That's what we call a farmer's carry. So that's another type of general fitness strength level we want to develop in people. So I would set up days for those Olympic type lifts where you have multi joints involved: squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing. You could do single leg deadlifts. You could do lunges. These are all multi joint type exercises. Outside of that, then I would do days where you're dealing with specific muscle development. So for example, your regime might look like this. And this is something maybe you and I can talk to and drill down in further, even beyond this call. But I might create your week like this. I might say, okay, Bamji, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're going to do Olympic type lifts, right? That's going to be your, your Olympic lifts where you're doing your bench press, you're doing your squat, you're doing deadlifts. Then on Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to target certain muscle groups, right? Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So let's say Sunday, we're going to focus on hamstrings, on, let's say we might, on another day, we may focus on triceps, or we may focus on shoulder development. And so we say, well, we're going to do, let's say, front grip pull-ups combined with bicep curls, or we're going to do a lighter bench press combined with push-ups on a Bosu ball, or we're going to do one leg squats combined with lunges. So in each of those particular pieces, we're focusing on a muscle, and usually supersets and also drop sets is what we call them. 5 reps at a very high level, 10 reps at 50% less weight, and go from there.
Okay.
So those are kind of the ways I would focus on if you're trying to build strength. And then the cardio is just there to make sure you're keeping your conditioning and getting your heart rate going. But you can get cardio from your strength training if long as you lower the weight and increase the reps. That's giving you a sense of cardio as well. Or if you finish off with a high intensity, a HIIT workout at the end for 10 minutes, where you have no weights, but you're just doing intensity, that also. So does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I never did get my exercise from you.
Did Luana reach out to you, Beverly?
No, this is Brenda.
Brenda. Oh, you never got the exercises?
No.
Okay. You're talking about the ones on you were worried about doing them on your bed, on your back?
Yes.
Okay. I will double check on that today. So, but I thought she had told me she had reached out to you, so I'll make sure.
No, because the night when you were saying that, for some reason I didn't have audio. I couldn't say. I was talking. I heard.
Okay.
Now, one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise for my belly what is good for that?
So you can't really do anything on your hands and knees, correct?
No.
Correct. So you're gonna have to do exercises for your core on your back. And so one exercise is what we call, that's good for your core, is what we call leg lowering. So that should be also in the videos that we recommended, where you're laying on your back and you have both of your legs vertical.
Correct.
And you just bring one leg down.
Am I correct on that?
And then back up.
I don't know.
Now, am I laying on? I can do this laying on my bed.
Say again.
I can do this laying on my bed.
Absolutely. Right. So you can take one leg down, one leg back up. So you do 10 per side. That's going to help work your core. The other thing is you can lay on your back on your bed, and you have your feet are up, kind of slightly bent at the knee.
Mm-hmm.
And you have your arms straight up, And what you do is you do a diagonal movement. So for example, as your right arm is straight up and your left leg is bent, you'll bring them out straight at the same time and then bring them back in while keeping the other ones exactly where they are.
Oh,
And
okay.
I can send you a video of that. So that will also work your core as well.
I would appreciate that video.
Okay. So I will remind Luana to get you that. So let me just write it down in my notes. So for Brenda, do dead bugs and leg lowering. But yes, those will definitely work your core. As that gets easier, then you can add weight in your hands. And then that's just going to increase that. But that's a really good thing. Outside of that, any full body activity like walking is going to help as well. So for example, if you say you're going on a walk, you want to do those core exercises and usually want to do 3 sets of about 10 repetitions. And so you do 10 repetitions 3 times. And you want to have at least 1 or 2 basic core activities that you're doing.
Okay.
And then take your walk. Then your muscles that have already been warmed up by strength training or by calisthenics actually burn more calories. So,
okay. So what you're saying is do these exercise before I walk?
Absolutely. Because you're actually going to burn more calories when you do the strength training first. You've actually gotten the muscles to a certain level of atrophy, or what we call hypertrophy. I mean, we're not going to failure, but we're not at that level yet. But nevertheless, if you do those strength exercises first and then do your walk, you're going to get more benefits.
Oh, great. See, I didn't know that.
Oh, that's no problem. That's why I'm here.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the videos now.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'll make sure she gets those to you. I have it written down right here. So
and to my knowledge, the last time I spoke with Beverly, it was Beverly and someone else. I can't remember who the other person was. They didn't get theirs either.
Yes. So I spoken to Luana. She said she did reach out to them to help them get on the platform because that's a common challenge that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So Beverly, do you know if Luana did reach out to you?
See, I don't know if Beverly is on or not.
She's here.
I'm on.
Oh,
yes,
there she is.
Yes, she did reach out to me, and I received my videos for the exercise.
Uh-huh.
But I never received the one for my evaluation.
Your assessment?
Right.
Okay.
I never received that one.
All right.
And
I can send you out one. So. Okay.
I had a concern. Even though I walk, usually I try to do my 3 miles or something like that. And when I'm going, instead of going to the store with my car, I've been trying to walk wherever I have to go to the store or something like that, just to keep the exercise going, to use my time better.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I was wondering, on the days, sometime I may walk maybe 4 times a week, but then I'm working in my yard, in my garden. Is that equal to it to a degree? And I'm staying out there maybe 4 or 5 hours, bending, stooping. How does that work in terms of my program that I'm doing? I'm really dealing with physical fitness as a whole.
Okay, so your question is surrounding working in your garden. Is that a good replacement for taking a walk or doing some of the activities that we may recommend?
Yes, because I walk about maybe at least 4 times a week, maybe 3 miles at least.
So what is your fitness goal? What are you trying to achieve?
Basically, I just want to be in good condition. I want to be able to endure, keep up with the grandchildren, of course, as usual.
Right.
And hiking and all the things that we do as older people. Sometimes I find that when I'm exercising, when I'm walking and just busy, my interaction with other people and things is much higher. I have more energy.
Correct.
But I was just concerned whether I know the walking is good and I'm sweating and all of that, but is it imperative that I do it at least 7 times a week, like the book is saying?
Absolutely. The activity is something that you do every day. It's just like when people come and they say, Sebastian, should I really exercise every day? And I look at them and I say, do you think you should eat every day? Do you think you should breathe air every day? What about sunshine? What about sleep? You know, people don't know they actually spend over 40% of their lives sleeping. So really 60% of life is built upon 40% of it just resting. Um, so exercise is should be as consistent as your diet. You should move as often as you eat.
Okay, Mom.
So if you're eating every day, you should be exercising every day.
Well,
Um,
so your yard exercise and cutting your grass and digging and all that stuff is not equivalent to exercise, basically. So this is
so
what I'm doing.
so it's
Cause
equivalent in terms of activity level, right? You're going to burn calories doing that, right? You're active, you're moving. What it is
hmm
not doing is it's not building a baseline of fitness, right? And
Okay.
so when you're thinking about keeping up with the grandkids and repetitive motions like cutting your grass, like
Mm-hmm.
we have to keep in mind that we're in a society where we're predominantly sedentary. So
hmm
back in the day when we were more agriculturally focused and we were
hmm
agrarian, you were moving 8, 9 hours a day.
hmm
You weren't moving just for a few hours a day and then sitting and resting and driving the rest of the time, because not only did you work in your yard and on your farm for 8 hours, you had to walk into town. You had to walk to school. You had to walk home. You had to carry those groceries. You had to carry the stuff to the market. So,
hmm
and then even to get water to bathe, you had to go exercise and walk. so, so you're looking at a situation now. I just go to the shower and turn it on. I don't have to do any exertion in order to do that. So, because society is a lot more sedentary, in order to get your body strength strong, in order to endure those repetitive movements, is you have to supplement it with a balanced fitness program. So my answer to you would be that number one, it's good for you to do the walking. It's good to be in the garden. Those are all great activities to do. You just want to supplement that with a little bit of strength training, because especially those of older women who are very prone to osteoporosis, um,
hmm
you know, fitness in terms of strength training actually strengthens the bones, not only your muscles. And it's a great protector against osteoporosis for women. So now nutrition has a good amount to do with that as well. But usually if you're exercising, you're probably eating better than most people, because nobody wants to exercise and go eat Burger King.
Right.
So um, that's usually not how people like to work it. One usually
hmm
goes with the other,
hmm
especially when you're older. So
hmm
the only thing I would insert in what you're doing is basically go ahead and try to add in some supplemental strength training, like some of the movements that we did in the assessment. Because when you're playing with your grandkids, you're going to have to squat, you're going to have to lunge, you're going to have to bend down and reach something, you're going to pick someone up. And if those movements are not strong and you're not moving well, the more often you move, you're actually creating dysfunction in your body. And that's where the
Okay.
degeneration process happens.
Now, what if you're doing while you're in your yard or cutting or bending, you're always conscious of those movements. So you're making sure you do those movements as you're doing your activity. So I may be out in the yard maybe 4 or 5 hours, and I'm
Mhm.
constantly bending, touching my toes and all these things, and conscious how I move my limbs so that I can be getting those movements in. Or do I have to just concentrate on just squat?
Exactly. So remember, the role of a fitness professional like myself, as I gave in the
hmm
presentation there back in July, is the fact that I can facilitate that process and make it easier and allow you to go faster. So
Okay.
it's true, doing that is going to help you. And it's primarily is going to help you because it's preventing you from injuring yourself doing those movements. But
hmm
if you're doing them a certain amount of times, you're going to have a stronger sense of the movement and your body's going to get stronger. But
Okay. I
if
got
you're talking about keeping up with grandkids and working in your garden, those are two different types of activities, right? So
Okay.
grandson may want you to spin, or you're falling and rolling over the couch and trying to get down on the floor with him. That's going to take a different level of fitness.
Okay. Well, I have a job. I'm supposed to be practicing for obstacle course with these younger grandchildren, and
Oh,
I did it with them. But at the same time, the tires and the climbing the logs and going around and all these things.
yeah.
And I did it, but it took me a long time. My goal is to show them Grandma can do it.
Well, yeah, then you definitely got to get into the strength training and you got to include some high intensity because an obstacle course is a combination of strength, endurance, and conditioning.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
you're gonna have to do height and running. You know, for example, if you're doing walking, you got to walk on an incline, right? Walk up a hill
Okay.
that's very steep. That's going to build strength to that muscle. If you're doing high intensity, we got to do sometimes where your heart rate is really up, and yet your
Okay.
body is still able to put output. So we got to load those patterns in ways that prepare you for what you're trying to do.
Okay. That's my goal.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that when you're doing obstacle courses, you're going to have to also use some innovative type of movements. Because typically, if that's people's goal, I want to focus on helping them reach their goal and not just general fitness ideas.
Okay.
So, for example, you know, you have very innovative things with like ropes, which is really building up your capacity with your shoulders, your core, your back, and as well as loading your hips a little bit by standing there in an almost toe touch situation. So
Mhm.
those are innovative things that you want to think about, ways that you can improve that. Also, doing pull-ups is going to be huge for you because you're in an obstacle.
Okay. All right. So they do have ropes there. You have to climb, and I didn't climb the ropes.
Oh, yeah. So that's exactly where the pull-ups and the core development is going to come in because
Okay.
me being
Okay.
200 pounds, you know, it's funny if you see my wife who's 130 pounds and you see us try to go over a fence that's about 4 feet tall, you see her struggle versus me struggling. It doesn't make sense. I just hop over the fence.
Mhm.
But she's struggling to climb over this thing. And she weighs less, she looks more fit. But the reality is that the concept of the activity, my body is more
Mhm.
prepared for that activity, even
Okay.
though she may be lighter and she should be able to just hop over that fence without a problem.
Mhm.
But it's the proportion of your muscles and your strength and capacities of your movements that are going to
Okay.
help.
Okay. Thank you.
No, it's very good questions. This is great. This is the type of interaction that I love. So, does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Well, if there are no other
Can
questions,
I ask one more question, SB? It's going to be a quick one.
of course, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay, so my phone was breaking up earlier, so
Okay.
I'm going to have to revisit some of the information you shared on. You said it's going to be on YouTube,
Yeah, I'll
but
send out the link to you and you can share it with the rest
okay.
of the team.
But in addition to that, so my diet is pretty plain right now, right? And me
Mhm,
trying to build muscle, I guess the question I have is, am I getting enough protein?
mhm,
That's one, because like I would stick to like fruits, nuts, and oatmeal for breakfast, and then do like a kale salad for lunch,
mhm.
and then that's kind of like pretty much what I'll eat for the day. But I know that if you do want to build and sustain muscle, there's a certain recommended amount of protein you need to consume.
Correct.
And whenever I see that recommendation, I'm like scared because it's like so huge, you know. And I'm like, how could I eat all of that? But I guess my question for you would be, what would be a decent amount of protein to consume? And then the second question is that just your views on running. I know there's a lot of different conflicting research on running, and is it good for you? Is it bad for you? But I've been incorporating that into my regimen as well.
Okay.
So running on a treadmill, what would your ideas be on that, and protein consumption?
Okay. Great question. So let me deal with the running question first, and then I'll talk about the protein. So when you're dealing with the running component, the issue is the amount of weight and pressure you're putting on your joints especially on a treadmill. If you're running in grass, sand, it's a lot less pressure on your joints, especially your hips, your knees. Also, we deal with form control. So running in proper form is also very critical to long distance running. So if you're trying to build muscle, then you're looking for just cardio conditioning. And there's ways you can get that without damaging your ability to load it, because running is a different type of load for your muscles than strength. So if you go through running, you can injure your knee, which is going to prevent your ability to squat. You can injure your back, which is going to prevent your ability to really do pull-ups, to do overhead type exercises, single leg exercises, which are all embedded in running. So part of it is going to be your functional movements, where you're adequate and where you're not. But on the other side with running, you really want to focus on proper form. And also you want to focus on, is that the kind of stress you want to put on your body, especially as you're building muscle? Because this is what happens to sports players, athletes. You could be a football player and you're 230 pounds, or a basketball player, you're 195, 210 pounds, and you're jumping up 3-4 feet off the ground, up and down for 40 minutes a day, on top of practice, on top of regular life. That's how they get injuries. And so you want to keep in mind that using an elliptical is a much better option for you if your goal is to build strength and you still want to get some cardio in. So on the running component, I'm usually more leery of people who don't have a running coach and someone to really check their form out, make sure their form is right, and make sure they're really protecting their joints through the movement and doing it properly. And if they're not trying to run a marathon or anything like that, then to me, you're doing it just for the conditioning and the benefit that it brings to your heart, your skin, your mental well-being. Running brings a lot of benefits on that. But I think if there's ways you can do it to protect your body, that's the way you should do it. On the protein thing, the typical rule we say is 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight that you have. So for me, right, to eat 200 grams of protein a day is aggressive. Protein can damage the liver and the kidneys. So there's definite concerns you have to be, because a lot of people are getting their protein from animal sources. And that brings a lot of inflammation and acidity into the body, in the digestive tract, and that creates a lot of problems. Even when you deal with these protein shakes, they're using a lot of, again, dairy and stuff like that, which again creates similar problems in the gut. A lot of people are lactose intolerant anyway. So if you're dealing with protein, I would try to stay somewhere around half your body weight to your full body weight in terms of grams per day, if you're trying to build muscle. But those things need to be lean protein, right? Lentils, nuts, whole grains, right? You're dealing with millet, buckwheat, whole wheat type breads, bagels, things like that. They're high carbs, but that's okay, because the output you're about to do in the gym is going to justify that. And you can supplement that with juicing and stuff like that. But I think the main component is going to be trying to keep it somewhere between half your body weight to your full body weight per gram of protein a day.
Okay.
That's usually a good gauge, but I would try to stay away from the full body weight number. I used to do that back when I was 160 pounds, I think, 170. And I felt like it was achievable. I could do it. But I just didn't feel like my health was optimal doing that.
Okay.
So I usually recommend half to about your full body weight. Somewhere in that, between those two numbers is a good number for muscle building protein.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for that.
Absolutely. But that's going to take a lot of tracking, a lot of discipline, stay on top of that. because you also got to watch your calorie intake. And so that's why I said, if you get lean proteins, things that are not going to give you a lot of calories, that's really where you're going to make all your money.
Okay.
Lentils, green leafy vegetables, whole grains, nuts. Yeah. But a lot of nuts are really healthy fats. They got saturated fat and peanuts, walnuts, cashews. Almonds are really the best, but again, you're still running into high fiber. And so you got to balance those type of things, different types of proteins.
Okay.
So, but yeah, all great questions. So, well, anyway, I know that it is 8 o'clock. So I want to thank you guys for being patient with the platform. This is recorded on YouTube. It's live right now. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up for tonight. I think our next call is next week, next Wednesday. And so yeah, should be gearing up for that. We'll try to troubleshoot some of these issues. I have Brenda on my list to send her some exercise videos and Beverly to get her assessment. So we'll definitely get cracking on that and make sure that stuff gets done. But thank you all for calling in. I hope, again, today was helpful. I wanted to focus on happiness, motivation, gratitude. Those are all key points at this juncture in the program as we think about it and keep ourselves going and keep ourselves motivated. I think that moving forward, if you guys have questions, please write them down, keep them, up to speed, or you can send them to Bomji, and the next session, we can go ahead and start tackling these things. And that's really what I like: interactive, good personalized questions where I can help you guys with your personal goals. So anyway, God bless you all. Enjoy the challenge. Stay focused, stay motivated. I think we got some incentives coming. So we'll keep pushing that and working on that. And in reality, I think we're pretty much halfway done with the program, huh? I think we should be about halfway there.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So this is the eye of the storm. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, anyway, thank you all. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. And I will make sure I take care of those who I spoke to tonight. We're going to get that taken care of swiftly. Thanks for your patience. And again, stay motivated. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Take care.
You all have a great night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Blessings.
thank you.
All right.